My real name, maiden name, birth certificate name is Cedric Miller. Some people know me as Killa Cam on the social media platform. Um, I can go into detail on how that nickname came about, but Cedric Miller, A is my middle initial, Cam, Killa Cam's a rapper. Anyway, a couple years ago, somebody coined that name. It stuck, and that's kind of what my a personification that I embody on the Instagram. But born and raised from Louisville, Kentucky, 26 years old, Louisville native. Graduated from St. Xavier High School back in 2014, and then after that, I went into the military. I actually got an appointment to the United States Military Academy at West Point, where I attended. It was a member of the United States Corps of Cadets for a little over 3 years, and then made the decision that I did not want to go the military route with as far as my career and future endeavors. So I ended up transferring back home to Louisville, the University of Louisville, and kind of getting back into the fitness world. Ever since, I've been personal training as well as online coaching. I am into the stretching practice. So I'm a stretching specialist, stretching practitioner, is the technical term. So I stretch people and during the day. And outside of that, I did start up the hobby of bodybuilding back in late 2018, where I really started immersing myself in the world of bodybuilding. Since then, I have competed in a numerous amount of shows, both local, regional, national, and this last November, actually, I was able to obtain my IFBB Pro card. So I competed in the Ben Weider Naturals, which is in Washington, D.C. in November of last year, where I did win the overall men's physique division to clinch my IFBB Pro card. And that kind of what brings me up until today. I'm still pursuing that passion as an athlete and a competitor in the world of bodybuilding, but I am an avid endorser of healthy living, fitness, wellness, all of that. So that's kind of a mini little synopsis over the last 4 to 5 years of kind of what's been going on in my life.
That's funny you mentioned St. X, because I'm actually a Trinity graduate.
Wow, yeah. Congrats.
Probably right
I
around the
don't have any
same time frame.
Okay, what year did you graduate?
14.
Yep, I graduated in 2014. So we were in the same class there. I played football, I did powerlifting, and I ran track back in the golden days, if you want to call it that. But no, yeah, I've got some buddies that we probably have some mutual friends. Then, if we graduated both in 2014, we definitely probably have some mutual friends. I did not know that.
That's funny.
So that is awesome. Yeah.
That is cool. So is that kind of where your love for the weights and stuff started, was kind of with the sports background?
Exactly. I mean, I had been playing sports, Daniel, for as long as I can remember. There was no off season for me when it came to sports growing up. I was going from football to basketball to golf to baseball. I mean, I was quite the spring chicken when it came to sports as a kid. And I think really that's what helped developed just my athleticism to where I was able to adapt over the years. But as far as bodybuilding and really training in the weight room and falling in love with the I call it the glorious house of gains, Daniel. That did start freshman year of my high school career. Around 2019, I was probably 15, 16 years old when I was introduced to the gym environment. And I can remember it almost as vividly as if it was yesterday. But the first time the football team, we trained together. So freshman year, I'm maybe, 110, 115 pounds. I'm not that big. Most people think I'm this big bodybuilder guy and that I've always somehow been. I'm not even that big now, right? But I was even smaller back then, small enough and weak enough to admit publicly, I'll go on record and saying this, I walked into the gym for the first time, Daniel, couldn't even bench press the bar. Okay. So for bench press. So for people that know the bench press, you've got a bar, you're on your back, you're pressing it. Couldn't even bench press a 45-pound bench press bar. With my competitive spirit, I was a very competitive guy. I was a smaller guy, but I had a big heart. I had a good work ethic, a good sense of discipline. So I said, this is unacceptable. I walked into the gym and I said, and I did that. And I've got other guys, they're bigger, they're stronger. It's a little bit disheartening. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but I didn't buckle under pressure. What I did was, Daniel, I didn't train with the team. I said, okay, I'm not there yet. I'm not quite there yet. So what I'm not going to do is train with you guys when I know I need to build up my strength. I need to learn the fundamentals. So what I ended up doing, my stepdad actually helped me in this process of just teaching me a lot of the fundamentals when it came to how to bench press, how to squat, how to deadlift, a lot of the core compound lifts. But I actually got a membership to a completely different gym. It was a YMCA, a small local YMCA. And I went over there every day after practice, sometimes before school, and trained. And just trained outside of going to practice, outside of doing all the academic stuff. And it was 6 to 7 days a week. I immersed myself in it because it was just an environment like no other that I had experienced before. The gym for me at that point in my life was a place, it was a safe haven. It was a home away from home. It was a place where I had total control. I would walk in there and I would just feel at peace. It taught me a lot as a developing adolescent teenager, and going through those stages, those hormonal stages too, with the females and wanting to, look good aesthetically with the shirt off. That's all where it started. So that then transitioned into me getting more interest into powerlifting and just wanting to lift a crazy amount of weight back then, kind of ego lifting at the age of 15, 16. And then after I joined the powerlifting team, I had a phenomenal coach. Shout out to Coach Gold. I believe he's still at St. X, but he's really one of the other guys that really took me under his wing and showed me a lot of, just the core foundation of how to lift properly. And from there, I transitioned into, okay, now that I know the fundamental lifts and how to do it properly, now I can work on going up in weight, adding mass, adding pounds, and things of that nature. But I mean, if in the grand scheme of things, I have been training in the gym. I was introduced over a decade ago. So if you can say that I've technically been immersed and growing in the gym environment when it comes to weightlifting, when it comes to training for over 10 years now. And that hearing me say that is actually kind of crazy. But it has been something that has both been mentally beneficial as far as my psychological. There's many people don't realize, Daniel, I don't think many people realize the mental and the mindfulness and that you can actually benefit from working out and training regularly, consistently. Not only are you obviously making gains physiologically with your body and the aesthetic aspect of it, but a gym to me is also a place where you can learn, where you do fail, right? And, you're able to see steady progress through commitment and consistency. And it was that when I started to see the results, the cliche saying that hard work pays off. And I know we overuse that, but it's definitely 100% true, in my opinion. And that, and when I started to see progress, when I was able to bench press more than just the bar, and I was able to put a 10-pound plate on, and then we were able to go to 20 and then 25. And finally, oh my gosh, I'm able to do a full plate. And then, oh my gosh, throw another plate on. That it just does something to a person. And it did something for me. That is where now most people don't even know I started off as a power lifter. I don't know if you picked up on that. Wasn't at all interested in bodybuilding back then. I actually thought the sport of bodybuilding was a little gross. If you actually think of the sport of bodybuilding from a third person perspective, somebody that doesn't know anything about the sport, and you just look at it at face value, you've got a bunch of men that are basically almost pretty much 100% naked, standing next to each other on a stage, and they're being judged by a panel of judges. So I didn't have any interest to do that when I was 15 and 16. The interest was more so getting more strength and more size for football. Primarily was honestly the number one goal. Is the reason why I really pushed myself in the gym at the beginning, was to get better for football, which was back then my number one sport. I even had aspirations to potentially play at the higher level in college. That didn't end up panning out. So, but no, the gym has definitely been a safe haven for me, a place that has helped me develop both physically and mentally. But yes, to answer your question, that is where I really began to fall in love with just weight training in the gym environment in general.
I think it's cool to hear you say that you realize that where your weak points were, you realize what you had to do to kind of get to where you wanted to be. I think it's such a good time to do it. Kind of like you said, it's this confidence booster in a lot of ways. And it lets you kind of, in a way, your body's changing in things you can't control, but that's that one thing that you can control. It's going to the gym, it's getting stronger, it's growing muscle. It definitely would have been one of the things I wish I would have done just a few years earlier instead of waiting until, my freshman year of college more. I definitely wish I would have done it a little bit earlier, but when
it's
it comes
never too late to start, though.
Absolutely.
Never too late.
I think that's one of kind of the lessons I learned as well.
100%. I've got people that ask me periodically, people that either slide in the DMs or just reach out to me. And these are younger, these are younger people who are, in those beginning stages. And it's humbling to, they're asking me, different questions about lifting and this and that, but it's definitely never too late to start the process. And when I say the process, it's just like you said, the trial and error period, the exploratory phase where you're just learning and you're more of a student of the gym versus the pro or the Olympic lifter, right? You're just in the gym and you're trying different methods, different techniques, and you're finding out what works best for you. And that's really what I felt more in tune with, was the process of trying all of these different, calisthenics, hypertrophy, strength training, progressive overload, all of these different techniques, and then sumo deadlift, conventional deadlift, high bar squat, low bar squat. I mean, it's so much science and different methodologies. So it's fun to treat myself as a guinea pig sometimes, as a test lab rat, and then finding out that thing that works best for you, so for sure, I agree with you on that.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that science aspect, because I actually went on to major in exercise science. And I think it's kind of, one of those areas where it's like, well, I want to just learn as much as I can about this so I can, obviously from a personal view, I want to do what I can do to be healthy,
right,
exercise the best I can do, but as well as, share that with other people. And it's so cool how it's such a young field. Fitness it's so young when it comes to the science
right.
side. We're getting all this cool research and this new technology that's out there. And, whether it's the wearables or the stuff that what you see in strength conditioning rooms with all the technology there, it's just, it's such a fun kind of place to be. And you can see it through social media. It's a very popular place to be. And just the future, I think, is
it's definitely
so
the
cool.
Industry itself, I think, Daniel, is growing exponentially. I had the opportunity to travel up to Columbus, Ohio, at the beginning of March last weekend, and be a part of the Arnold Expo that was up there and immerse myself in that community. It's not the first time that I've been to the Arnold Expo up in Columbus, but it was the first time that I had been since the pandemic. They didn't have it last year, but being in an environment with basically other people who share, you're saying these things, and we have common interests. We are like-minded in a lot of ways from a perspective standpoint when it comes to a lot of the training in the working out and what it does for us. And it was my first time actually viewing the bodybuilding competition itself, it live at the actual show. And I did that intentionally because I, wanted to see. It's not like I haven't been to a pro show before. I've seen professional athletes compete before, but to see them on the level of at the Arnold stage, one of the biggest bodybuilding shows in the world, was a bit eye-opening. But I think with my competitive spirit, I was able to really see what I am going to have to bring to the table when I do make the decision to go ahead and compete in my pro debut.
I was
So
actually, that's one of the things, one of the events I've always wanted to go to, over the past, 6, 7 years.
it's awesome, and
Kind
it's
of
just
getting
not
into the world.
bodybuilding, man. They have over 80 different sports, from jousting to body painting to I mean, there's so many different stuff that they have there. It's just not centralized. They have the arm wrestling in the if you've ever seen the face slaps, dude. The face
Yeah.
slaps is intense. Logan Paul, he if you know the influencer Logan Paul, he hosted the face slapping competition, and just seeing all those different sports and looking, because every sport they take it seriously, and as they should, right? There's different techniques, the strongman competition and all of that. So it is a weekend to remember. Back in 2019, I believe most people think I've been doing this for years. I've only been bodybuilding for since late 2018. So you're looking at 3, 4 years or whatever. But going to the Arnold for the first time back in 2019, I believe, 2018 actually, was what really solidified my ambition to want to try it out and to compete. That's actually what did it for me back then. But yeah, it's a great trip. You should definitely make it out next year if you can.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to. Actually, I'm going to my first bodybuilding show, the Kentucky
Nice.
Derby Festival, and so I'm really
Nice. Yeah, I'll be
looking
there,
forward to
bud.
that.
Maybe
Awesome.
if you come across, we'll link up. But I
Yeah.
actually have shout out. Let me go ahead and give one of my clients some clout that'll be competing. His name's Kanan Kroom. He's based out of Lexington, Kentucky, but he's going to be competing in that Kentucky Derby show in Louisville, and he's looking good, man. He's looking good.
Yeah, I
He's a
think I
younger
actually
guy,
follow
but
him.
yeah, younger guy, but he's a workhorse, and his sense of discipline and commitment is outstanding. So I have high hopes for him in that show for his debut as a competitor. It's cool to see, some of the younger people that are younger than me really take interest and really commit themselves, and it's just fun because it's also a competitive aspect too. Because I know of some other guys that'll be competing against Kanan that I also am friends with, and it's just a little camaraderie, little team competitiveness going on to where everybody's supporting one another. But we are, Kanan's going in to win, where everybody's going in to win, and it's just going to be a fun experience. I love seeing the sport continue to grow, because for a minute there, man, COVID hit and it was dwindling. It was losing popularity. It was losing a lot of things. And I think with the resurgence of all of these new divisions, the classic divisions, the wellness division in the female category, I mean, all these, the men's physique, all of this, a lot of more people are starting to immerse themselves, just like yourself, right? You're going to be going to your first. So that's awesome to hear too. You know what I mean? So
Right. So, when it comes to your own bodybuilding journey, what do you think kind of some of those initial challenges were? Because you said you were interested at first kind of more into the powerlifting stuff and
right,
using it for sports, stuff like that. So, what kind of
right,
challenges happened whenever you decided to transition?
right. So back when I was a power lifter, I had power lifted all the way up to senior year, and I had basically reached a point at which I wasn't burnt out from powerlifting, but I felt as though I had reached a cap as far as with my strength. I was a smaller guy. So just to give you an idea, I was about 145 pounds deadlifting over 515 pounds back in the heyday, conventional. Squat was decent. Bench was probably my poorest weight, but I was totaling over 1,000 regularly at 145 pounds, 5'6", 5'7" on a good day. But after senior year, man, when I quickly realized that I was not going to play football at the collegiate level, I started to look for the next best challenge. and went into the Army, was doing a lot of things there, getting a lot of badges, getting a lot of ribbons, air assault, airborne, a lot of training schools and stuff, was super GI Joe, right? And once I GI Joe'd it up, and basically it was just I was living a life of a GI of a, I don't know. It was crazy, right? Flying in Black Hawks and shooting every type of weapon you could possibly imagine. That was fun, but I didn't want to do it as a career. So I just came back into the personal training realm, and that's where I kind of got back into the body. That's where I started getting into bodybuilding. Prior to that, Daniel, I knew of Ronnie Coleman. I knew of, like, I heard of the big names, right? I had seen videos of Ronnie Coleman squatting 800 pounds. I had seen videos of Jay Cutler and Tom Platz and Arnold back in the day and pumping, the original old school Gold's Gym. I knew the history, but I wasn't really a part of it. I didn't really consider myself, associated with that demographic. So, like I said, I ended up coming back home from West Point. This was 2018. And that is the year that I had made the decision to travel up to Columbus, Ohio, to the Arnold. And that's pretty much what solidified getting to meet all of these people in person. I met Ronnie for the first time. I met Christian Bumstead. I met Breon. A lot of these household names that are in the industry now, I met them in person. And it was such a humbling experience to meet those guys. I said, you know what, this seems so cool that I'm going to go back home and I'm going to pick a show. And that's where that's where it really started. Once I came back home in 2019 from Columbus, Ohio, I was basically saying, this is the next challenge. This is the next thing that I need to conquer. So I literally didn't go the coach route, didn't really even want to coach at that time. Nothing wrong with younger people who do get a coach. I think getting a coach that is educated and knows their stuff is different than getting a coach that's just online, not really caring, doesn't have the credentials. If you're going to get a coach that's trained, accredited, and has a resume, a repertoire to back up his or her credentials. But I didn't choose to get a coach. I more so was, fell in love with the science we just, that we talked about. I just went to YouTube. I went to Google. I went into the library, got books, it was crazy. And it was just a thing that I had it had immersed me to where I was literally researching and studying this information almost 24/7. Ended up competing in my first bodybuilding show in late 2018. But I think, to answer your original question, which was, what are the main setbacks to newbies, rookies that are starting to get their feet wet, that are thinking about competing? I think some of the biggest mental aspect of, for me specifically, it was not having the self-confidence to really think that I had what it took to be competitive, because I thought I was too small. That had always been the thing in high school for me with the sports, was I wasn't necessarily starting because I wasn't big enough, or I wasn't necessarily getting enough many snaps at the running back position because I wasn't big enough, right? I excelled in powerlifting because that's an individual sport. I think that's why I took on a bodybuilding, because it's 100% reliable on my performance. I don't have to depend on anybody else. Nobody has to depend on me. But I think for me specifically, the self-confidence, a lot of people also, which was also a thing for me, but some more so than others, is the body dysmorphia. And I don't think that a lot of people are open as much as they should be, because I think every competitor, every great bodybuilder, even, the great ones all the way down to the amateurs and the rookies, all of us suffer to some extent from body dysmorphia. Okay. That's just the reality. Now, the thing about it is, you hear that term body dysmorphia, you automatically think, oh, that's bad. That's a bad thing, right? You put it in the category of maybe somebody who's anorexic, or, somebody who has some sort of eating disorder or something like that. body dysmorphia is a symptom that I think honestly everybody probably suffers from it to a certain extent, right? Every human, they look at themselves, they want to look you want to look a certain way, you want to, and that's just, I think that's just a natural human instinct. But for me, it was, oh man, I just came from the Arnold, right? And I'm looking at these guys. They're huge. They're pros, right? And I didn't know the difference between a local show and a regional. You got to work your way up. But I'm looking at this stage I'm looking at these people, and I'm like, these guys are massive, right? So I'm about to compete in the show. If I'm going to be competing against these guys, there's no way I'm going to have a chance, right? But the more I did research, the more I found, oh, there's natural shows, there's drug tested shows, there's novice divisions to where you can compete in a true novice divisions where you're more at an even level playing field, where you're competing against other people that have that have never competed also, right? So the more I educated myself, the more I kind of built confidence in myself. But I think the biggest struggle that most people that are thinking about getting into the sport, that are thinking about competing, is the mental combined with the element of body dysmorphia and self-confidence. So the hurdles of being able to turn the switch off and stop comparing yourself to other people, I think is it took me a while to get to that point. And I think, I even circle back around every time I get ready to compete to a show. It's like, I do stake out my competition, but at the end of the day, I am trying to be the best version of myself possible. It's a me versus me. It's not a me versus Joe Schmo, because I can't control what Joe Schmo is doing for his diet. I can't control what Joe's doing for his training, right? It's all up to me to control what it is that I'm doing. So as long as people can establish that, that would be my advice to people that are still struggling to build up that confidence. Just come in with the mindset and the perspective of thinking, okay, I'm doing this for me, and I'm not comparing myself to other people. I may look at Joe Schmo and say that he looks great. Like I look at athletes like as role models, as Ronnie Coleman. He's the greatest of all time to me, right? And but I'm not necessarily. Why am I going to compare my physique to an 8-time Mr. Olympia physique when I had, So we've got to be realistic about. A lot of people have to be more real when they're going through this phase, because every bodybuilder, anybody who considers competing in this sport has to cross that gap to where they have to come to the realization, okay, this is an individual sport. And then at the end of the day, on show day, you still don't have control over the outcome, because it's subjective, because it depends on what the judges think. You still don't have control of the outcome. So once you can understand all of that, then you're like, oh, right, right. This is me versus me. And if you're doing it for fun, I say do it for fun. The first time I did a show, I did go in with the aspirations to be competitive, but you have to be realistic and say, have fun with it. Don't get too caught up to where it doesn't become fun. The moment it doesn't become fun, this is my philosophy. The moment bodybuilding stops becoming fun is the moment that I hang up the towel and walk away. So, yeah. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that's
confidence is a major thing for most. Is the major hurdle for a lot of these people out here is confidence. But confidence can be developed, and self-esteem and self-image can be developed over time through consistency and hard work. Definitely. I do believe that.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think that the drugs versus no drugs versus or even this league versus the other league, you have different places
right.
people can go. Do you think that is overall good? Do you think that that's overall bad for the sport?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can understand what you're asking here. For me, when I first got started, I just really started doing a lot of the research on my own as far as the different types of organizations and leagues and divisions and stuff like that, and the rules and regulations. But I think that goes with any sport, right? I mean, my mom doesn't know football, right? She still goes to my football games. It's a matter of if you have interest or not, I think, is what we're going to get down to. I don't think anybody should feel intimidated from the fact that there are different categories, right? It's just the same. I mean, with football, you have the Canadian Football League, you have arena football, you have, the high school, collegiate, pro level. So it's just a matter of what interests you. You know what I'm saying? So if you're interested in bodybuilding, look at the bodybuilding. If you're more interested in men's physique, right, which I'm a men's physique competitor, there's a distinction there. Then I'm mainly focused on, that division. If you're more of a classic guy, which is a different division, then you're gonna look more into that. It all comes down to what interests you. I think it's improving. The popularity of the sport, I don't think is struggling at all. I think we're actually doing very good. Just going to the Arnold up in Ohio, I think we're not having an issue with people that are gaining interest of the sport or wanting to be a part of the community at all. I think maybe you're asking more of, it's not the drugs, is it, or is it? I don't know, because you said a lot of different things. I'm trying to focal it to one specific question. I don't know if that answered the question, but you did mention, I didn't know if you were going more towards the like steroids or natural versus un.
I think that also kind of plays like a little bit in my own head from an onlooker perspective. It's always kind of been like, oh, wow, that person's, huge. I want to be like that one day. And without the knowledge of, oh, well, maybe they're taking.
Okay.
Something.
I see. That's okay. Yeah. So that is probably a thing that I feel like needs to be probably more talked about, because here's what you have. You have these young people that are gaining interest in the sport, that are seeing these pros, that are seeing these competitors that look great, that look phenomenal. And, it's almost if the competitor, which is the competitor's not obligated to share, Tom Brady's not going to share his playbook, right? Bill Belichick is not going to share his opponent's playbook, to the Super Bowl. But, we're not going to, the Rams didn't show whoever, I don't even know who they play, but you see what I'm saying? Yes. So I don't judge an athlete who is not open when it comes to their specific protocol, when it comes to training, when it comes to dieting, when it comes to performance enhancing drugs. That honestly, if they want to keep that private, then I respect that, because that is just them being a good athlete, a good competitive athlete. You look at the sport of cycling, for instance, in the Lance Armstrong fiasco. I don't know if you remember when that was a big deal, but years later turned out they made a big uproar about Lance doing it, and then they later found out all of them were doing it. Over 90% of the other cyclists in the Tour de France were doing the same methodology. So when you get into a sport, right, you have to be aware of, kind of what has been going on for years, right? So if you're talking about if you want to just limit it to the steroid thing, since the beginning of the sport of bodybuilding all the way back to the Arnold, it's been an element of the sport. I can't necessarily speak on behalf of any other sports, but I can guarantee you we've already seen it happen in baseball. We've already seen it happen in cycling. I guarantee you it's happening in every other major sport. And I'm not going to say any names, but you have athletes that are still performing at an elite level at the age of 45, pushing 50. Is that just... Okay, so, let's be realist about what's really going on. If over 90% of the competitive pool is training a certain way, is dieting a certain way, or doing certain things to perform at an optimal level, I'm not just speaking of bodybuilding, I'm talking about any sport, tennis, golf, any sport. Then you just have to be realistic with it, right? I personally I am natural. Okay, I competed in a drug-tested show. I won it fair and square, right? And that's just a personal decision that I have made to continue to push my genetic limits and just not take anything. I genetically gifted, so I diet hard, and I believe my work ethic is pretty good. So I beat people that have been taking whatever their whole life. So that really doesn't faze me. That really, maybe at the beginning, it probably was more so a hesitation, because knowing that that was an aspect. But I think people like you, Daniel, you said you feel like that was a quarrel for you. I feel like people are so, people might fear it, or people might say, well, oh my gosh, what about all these, because nobody's educated on it anymore. If you back in the 90s, back in the days where you were actually able to go to a doctor and get prescribed a lot of these things, and be monitored, and still continue and get the real stuff versus stuff that's being made, offline, then I feel like it would be a much safer and much conducive sport for people to feel a little bit more comfortable getting into. But unfortunately, I don't think I think you do hit a good point. I don't think that's being talked about enough. I really can't speak on that behalf of that specific topic, because I'm a natural competitor. Now I can speak on the fact that obviously for a person like me who chooses to remain 100%, natural, is going to be harder for me as a pro now, right? Because a lot of, it's just a different level of competition. So, it just, I don't know. I don't think I don't think that element of the sport is hindering people from taking interest. I think the interest in the sport itself is growing faster than it ever has.
Right.
So that is not the problem. I think the dialogue that needs to be we need to start having more dialogues is, what are people doing, right? Training wise, diet wise, supplementation wise, and that comes with also getting it. If you're going to get a coach, do your research and get a legitimate coach, to where you can have that guidance, that structure, that accountability, somebody who's knowledgeable and certified and trained in a lot of these aspects, to where they can, you won't just go in blind. You know what I'm saying? On a lot of this information, because there's a lot of information out there on the social medias and the interweb and the internet that aren't valid, that aren't true, that simply aren't true. So a lot of rumors about this and that, and people dying and this and that. You've really got to be able to decipher. Same thing with the news in the regular world, right? How are you going to be able to decipher who's telling the truth and who's not, what's fact, what's made up? You've really got to, if you have an interest with it, then you'll find a way to get to the root of it and to really educate yourself. It's a knowledge gap that I think may be the thing that holds people up, from fully committing, or, becoming a full-on fan of the sport. I think it's just the lack of knowledge that people have. And I don't know if it's a lack of willingness to really learn the ins and outs and the history of the sport and what's been done for years and decades. I don't know. But I can tell you that the sport is growing bigger and better than it ever has in the history of its existence. I can guarantee you that.
I think part of the cool part about it is like it's almost more fair than like another sport, because it's like, okay, if you don't want to partake in these things, you have the option. If you do, or if you don't, whatever, here's the other option. Like, I'm kind of a little bit of the viewpoint of, it's almost unfair to tell someone that they can't do something to make them a better athlete, but it's also kind of a little bit unfair to say, if you want to compete with these other football players, you have to, maybe you have to do something you're uncomfortable doing. So it's kind of, it's definitely a hard discussion. It's like a hard conversation to have.
Well,
with
let me kind of do a
yourself.
continuation off of that. This is something that we're just now starting to see more attention to. So, like, for instance, the show that I competed in last November was a drug-tested show. It was a pro-am, to where you had both an amateur division and a pro division, where you had athletes that were natural athletes that wanted a pathway to earn their pro card, to earn an invitation to the Olympia as a natural athlete. That competition, the Ben Weider Naturals, shout out to the promoters of that show, named after Joe Weider. Ben Weider is the older brother of Joe Weider. Joe Weider is the founder of the International Federation of Bodybuilding, the IFBB, the league. So that's who the Mr. Olympia is named after, the Super Bowl of bodybuilding. So you have different little factions of all types of competitors within the IFBB, right? Or IFBB. You have the female competitors, and then within the female competitors, you have fitness, wellness, you have all these different divisions. And then within the men, you have men's physique, classic, open. So within that community, you do have a percentage of people who want to stay natural, who want to progress in the sport. And really, prior to the Ben Weider, there was really not a clear path, you know, as far as people wanting to climb that ladder and an opportunity to still work their way up and not come to a crossroads and not be able to, you know, can progress in their career and their hobby. But the introduction of shows like the Ben Weider and many other NPC shows that are now natural shows to where you can earn your national qualification naturally, you can earn your pro card naturally, and you can earn an invitation to the Mr. Olympia naturally. So I think that is starting to get more attention, necessary attention, the attention that it should get, because you do have a large number of natural competitors. You just don't hear about them because, but prior to really the Ben Weider and a lot, you know, years prior, there was really not an opportunity for a natural competitor to really earn that right to work their way up if they wanted to remain that way, right? Obviously, there's going to be pros and cons to somebody who chooses to do that, and there's obviously going to be limits to, you know, how far somebody would probably be able to push themselves with making that decision. But now we actually have opportunities in play to where you can remain natural and still work your way up all the way to the Olympia stage, and I think that is fantastic for a lot of these guys who want to remain natural. I think that's great.
Do you see with the kind of increase in possibilities for the natural athlete, do you see that potentially could become maybe even the more popular route in the future, do you think? Or do you think it's going to stay with, you know, just the kind of the traditional ways?
Well, I mean, it's really kind of hard to predict that. I mean, I don't want to turn this into a natty versus stereotypical natty versus unnatty conversation, but I do foresee there being a larger number or larger representation of natural competitors within the pro level. I do foresee that the numbers will only go up because, you know, I do believe that health is important, and doing it, you know, whatever an individual chooses to do is their business first and foremost. But in the future, I do foresee the number is only going to go up. So yes, I do think it's gaining popularity, and I do think it's gaining some attention now to where in the future, I mean, who knows, maybe you'll have a completely separate Mr. Olympia. Maybe they'll introduce, I could foresee them they're introducing all these other new divisions and categories and stuff. Hey, let's introduce a Olympia natural division to where you can, you know, you've got amateur Olympia, you've got all these different little divisions. I can foresee there being one day in the future, you know, a natural Mr. Olympia. Why not? I think that's great. That's only bringing more people in. That's only promoting the sport more, and it's promoting health and wellness and everything else. So I think that I definitely see it only growing when it comes to natural bodybuilding and stuff like that, for sure.
Yeah. And I think too, potentially the use of some type of, you know, call it, you know, you could call it a performance enhancer, but almost a performance enhancer that's just like kind of just like taking protein or creatine or something that, you know, because
then again, yeah,
more technology, you have maybe the safer use of these things potentially.
Well, I mean, there is a safe way to do it. People think that, oh my God, he's using, because everybody across, it's not just bodybuilding, I'm not going to name any names, but you take any other major athlete of any other sport, I guarantee you they're doing something to enhance their performance, whether it be protein, creatine. And then that's another thing. What does a person consider to be natty or unnatty? I take creatine. Some people think creatine is not natural. So that's the thing. What is the person's definition, one, of what they describe as natural, right?
Right.
I take protein, I take creatine, I take a bunch of other herbal organic supplements to where you can technically not technically, it is enhancing my performance. So does that make me natty? Does that make me unnatty? So it's a gray area, but the more people are willing to educate, here's the thing. This has been done for decades. So what does that mean? That means we have so much science, like you said, at our disposal that's out there for people to literally look, okay, well, what are the side effects? What are the benefits? What are, a lot of these, I think the problem is, and I don't care because I can say it, it's gotten to a point now to where we've just pushed the envelope, or you have a number of competitors who just want to push the envelope, right? Meaning I'm not necessarily, and I think you'll have a lot of people that agree with me. I'm not necessarily a fan of pushing the mass, of pushing size. I'm more of the proportional, aesthetic, V-taper, shredded, conditioned versus the grotesque, some of the grotesque things that we see with some of these competitors now of just getting so big that it's just ugly to me. It's unappealing. It's unaesthetic. It's disgusting. And I think that is where you run into the health risks. The more, everything done, alcohol, everything done within moderation can be done in a healthy manner to where you can still benefit and get the result that you want out of it. When people start to abuse things like alcohol, when people start to abuse drugs and stuff like that, that is where we run into health risks. That is where we start to see people having issues, is when drugs and things are abused. When things are done within moderation, when things are monitored, when things are done very meticulously, just like any other sport. You're showing up to practice, you are dieting properly, you are watching film. When everything's done the right way, then it's fine. It's 100% fine. It's 100% healthy. But when things are pushed, when the envelope is pushed, I don't know what has to be, I don't know if there is anything that can be done, but I think that's why you have these other divisions that are now coming into play, because I think people are starting to realize, oh my gosh, these guys are just, these people are just getting a little bit too big to where this is bodybuilding. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I think that's why we have classic. And I think that's why they made men's physique, is because they saw, dude, our sports, and it was on a slow decline. Because I think that was the trend that was going. But see, that goes all the way back to the late 90s, early 2000s, when you had, goats like Dorian Yates who did push the envelope. But see, it's different, because with guys like Dorian Yates, even though they pushed the size and they pushed the muscularity, he still was conditioned as all get out, and he was still proportional. There was no extended bubble guts. There was no weird, he wasn't walking around looking like a Michelin man. He was he was still proportional and conditioned. So I just think things need to be done in a healthy manner, and they need to be monitored, and they need to be done within moderation. And you need to, a lot of these people are just not complacent with delayed gratification, Daniel. And that's what it comes down to. I choose to remain natural because I love the process. I don't want to speed up anything. I'm having fun with it. And I want to be doing this for a long time. I want to educate, and I'm already have. One of my missions is to help bring more awareness and to promote the health side, and to promote how this is a very beneficial sport to do, just like golf, right? Bodybuilding is great. You can do bodybuilding for your entire life, so if it's done the right way. But I don't think nobody should be stooped. I don't think that should be the end all be all is, oh my gosh, he's taken. No, I think it's just the society has deemed it as such because it's a little bit of fear mongering that's happened. I don't know if you knew this, Daniel, but back before a lot of these sanctions on a lot of these things, bodybuilders were able to go to the doctor. You were able to go get your levels checked. You were able to get prescribed things and monitored, and it was healthy. When things became when Congress enacted laws, in the mid 90s to kind of ban certain things and to make things wrong, that's when you started having the issues. That's when you started having issues, is when those changes were made. When you started having sources of things that weren't actually the things that they said they were, and you didn't know. I mean, it's just so many negatives that came with that decision. That I think that's where we really started seeing some of those issues that you may be referring to.
Wanted to talk a little bit about was the stretching aspect, because I think that's a really interesting thing. And actually, I was listening to a little thing on David Goggins, and he was talking about how that's just like
stretches for like an hour, 2 hours every day. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's almost like saved his active life. He got so into training, and it was basically destroying his body because he wasn't recovering well enough.
Oh yeah.
How did you get into that side of it?
Well, that is a good question there. I haven't always been a proponent of stretching. As a matter of fact, when I was playing all those sports in high school, the powerlifting, the track, the football, I was doing limited to no, I wasn't stretching. Okay. I wasn't doing it. I wasn't stretching as much as I should have been stretching. And, you do the stretches before pregame, the ones that the coaches show you, and then maybe a little bit after, but I'm not stretching, nobody. And the average person, if I asked you or anybody, it's like, how much do you stretch on your off time? People are going to say little to none, maybe a little bit, but you're not stretching enough. But I kind of got introduced to that field when, because I was personal training prior to COVID in the corporate arena. And I was at the corporate gyms doing my thing with the personal training, was seeing success. And then when COVID kind of came around, that basically kind of rocked that industry, changed it for permanently, really. And so I started looking at other options at that point. And then really kind of coming out of that initial phase, stumbled upon, because I wanted to get back into the fitness industry, but I wanted to not do training. Personal training. So, was considering physical therapy and different things within the body works, massage therapy, things like that. Stumbled across an organization or a company called Stretch Zone that is one of the only actually accredited stretching industries in its field, right? So really just kind of scheduled a consultation. really, I came out of my show in November wanting to either get a deep tissue massage. I really wanted to get it. Here's how the story goes. I came out of that November show after I got my pro card, and I said, man, I felt, I felt tense. I had been on a diet. I was depleted. I was tired. So I was like, I need to get a deep tissue massage or something. So I was on Instagram and one day, and I guess the cookies or how they track you. And I guess I had been looking up information or whatever about massages, and this little ad comes up about the Stretch Zone. Never heard of it, never even seen it, and saw that they had one here in Louisville. They actually have 2 locations in Louisville, one in St. Matthews, one in Middletown, and ended up scheduling a consultation, not wanting a job, just wanting to, it was a free stretch. So I was like, yeah, that's a jackpot. Instead of spending however so much for a massage that I don't know if it's going to be good or not, let me just do this free stretch and see what that's about. So scheduled it, and really the rest is history. Went in, they were looking for people. It was newer. They were about to open up. This is before the Middletown location was open. They opened up back in December, and really with my background, it was kind of an easy segue for me to go in that field. As a specialist, got trained, got certified, and stretching needs to be stressed more, because it is the reason why people are suffering from a lot of chronic and minor pains in their body. So a lot of the demographic that we see coming in now, mind you, we do stretch the professional and the collegiate athletes. We're going to the Yum Center during March Madness, and we're stretching a lot of the female basketball players that are getting ready to do their thing. But outside of the athletic world, I mean, stretching can't be stressed enough. We have people coming in there with spinal fusions, hip replacements, knee replacements, coming out of physical therapy. I mean, we're working with old, young people that sit at a desk all day. It just depends on what your profile is. But I guarantee you, anybody that you're talking about is not doing enough stretching. So whether you're suffering from lower back pain, this and that, I'm trying to get back into the gym, or I had to stop running because my knees are so pain. They don't even realize they're going to chiropractor. They're doing this. They're getting the needling and the cupping and all that. And all that's great. And the hyperbolic chambers and all that, and spending hundreds of dollars on, thousands of dollars on some of those practices, when literally you can just stretch. And a lot of the opening up, the blood, promoting circulation, blood flow into a lot of the areas that have been compressed over years, right? Hips, lower back, hamstrings, a lot of the areas that would be stretched, just like Daniel, your car, right? Go 10 years without getting an oil change and get back to me and tell me if it's still running. You know what I'm saying? So the same thing is applied to the human body and stretching. I was an athlete in high school. You're younger, you're more mobile, your body's able to recover faster. Out of high school, I did go into the military, so I was still active, still not stretching. But over the years, as you more wear and tear on the body, you're going to get tighter, you're going to get tenser. It's going to affect your posture. If you're not stretching, so it's going to constrict blood flow. So, the first time I got my consultation, it was only 30 minutes is all it took for me to be sold on the whole philosophy and ideology behind the methodology of the type of stretching that we do. So we don't do static stretching. It's not dynamic stretching. It's not stretching that you can do on your own. We have tables, we have constraints and stuff to actually get you. But it's a holistic approach to just promoting overall mobility, functionality, overall movement, right, is what we want, right? We promote longevity. So it's more of it's active stretching. So it's not like you're preparing to go and run a marathon. You're not, this is not that. It's more of an active recovery, so you can be more flexible and just do a lot of the things that you may have been constricted to. The older you get, we see people that aren't able to bend down and tie their shoes. We see people that are waking up out of bed and having, tightness in their lower back and their neck and stuff. So it's another opportunity for me to affect people's lives on the daily in a positive way. Right. And that's what really sold me also and really reeled me into stretching. The stretching practice is because it was another opportunity for me to have a lasting impact. These are people that haven't been able to bend down in years. I mean, some of these people get off these tables and I've put people in tears in a good way. I don't torture, right? I don't torture people, but it's good to see, people that are just relieved. These are moms, these are granddads, these are, young, it can be any background, but to see the results of what stretching can do for someone, old, young, middle-aged, doesn't matter, surgery, car wreck, doesn't matter what the case may be, it's going to benefit you. So I've only been really a stretch practitioner since December. December of last year. So only about going on 3 months now, but I'm loving it. If you're in Louisville, so we'll get you out there and you can see how the process works for yourself, man, for sure. And we can kind of show you the process, but it's great, man. A lot of people are benefiting, and I only think it's gonna spread and probably get more locations here in Louisville here soon. I would anticipate, but stretching is great, man.
How do you think it's helped you though? How do you, as an athlete and as a competitor, training wise?
Yeah. Well, I am still doing I train hamstrings today with my training partner. Shout out to Stephen Heckman, who is not only younger than me, but he's stronger than me. And basically, he's not a pro, he's an amateur. He hasn't even competed, but he's very disciplined. And he's actually, believe it or not, he's coaching an IFBB Pro. He's 21, 22, younger 20s. And he's coaching me in training. But no, it helps me because I'm doing these heavy compound lifts, right? And my body is getting tenser. I just turned 26, so I'm still young, but I did before I was stretching regularly, which I wasn't. I've never stretched regularly in my entire life, right? So I think for me, it was that quarter century. I think it was that quarter century mark, bro, to where I was like, oh my God, right? I've lived a quarter of my life. If that's saying if I live to be 100, but it's like, wow, I just turned 25. And why am I waking? Why, you do, and you start, I don't know how old you are, Daniel.
Yeah. 27.
But, so, I don't know if you've started to onset, I call it DOMS, delayed onset of muscle soreness is what we get. But when I was in high school, bro, my body's recovering a day. It's like a day. I could tweak something. I could strain a freaking bicep or a shoulder. And in 2 days, it's like it never even happened. Now, bro, I tweak something or I'm lifting and it takes longer for me to recover. Stretching not only helps mitigate injury, okay, by promoting blood flow and helping with your mobility, but it also helps with your performance. So since I started stretching about 3 months ago, not only have I seen an increased energy level, I don't get fatigued as easy. I'm able to put out more. My numbers and strength, I feel more energized, right? But it also helps prevent injury. So when I am stepping into the gym and I do go for these heavy compound lifts, I feel more comfortable because it feels good. The movements feel good. I'm able to get a full range of motion without feeling any type of discomfort, right? I was doing deadlifts today, no discomfort, right? And stretched after, make it a mandatory routine. Now is stretching, because I have seen so much benefits in specifically my performance in the gym that it will now, for the rest of my life, as long as I'm able to do this, it will now be an element of my training program. It wasn't a part of it before, I can tell you that, but a lot of the people that are coming in and joining, right, and getting on memberships, I ultra runners, high school baseball athlete competitors, track runners. I mean, older guys, older gals that still want to play golf, that still want to do tennis, that still want to take their grandkids out for a walk. All of these things go focus. The nucleus is stretching. It goes back to stretching, and I just think it's slept on. I think stretching is underrated. It's not stretched enough. I don't think you would have a lot of these other practices if people stretched more. So take that as you will, but some people won't like me for saying it, but I think it's the truth.
This world of recovery, I think, is actually becoming so much bigger now, over the last couple of years. And with new modes of doing it, and stretching certainly isn't new, but just like almost a resurgence of it becoming more popular to do, and everything, the research going into, does this supplement help us recover better? Does this way of just how sleep helps us recover better? Like, I think the recovery side is becoming such a cool thing to learn about and to implement.
And the reason that why people aren't doing it is because they don't feel like their body can do it. They're not going on the walks anymore. They're not walking their dog anymore because their knees are hurting or their back's in pain, and these are actual ailments that they're suffering from. But they don't know, if you just applied a little bit of this dynamic stretching, a little bit of this active recovery stretching, then you're going to be able to do those things again with ease and feel good again with yourself. So a lot of these guys are coming in wanting to do a lot of these activities that they were at one time able to do comfortably, but stretching is preventative maintenance, just like preventative maintenance on your car. If you don't get it checked, you're going to start, engine lights are going to start coming off. It's going to break down on you. Yeah. It's the same exact comparison when it comes to stretching in the human body. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But yeah, the science behind it now supports it even more so, to where people are gaining knowledge and seeing the importance of there's so many different benefits that stretching can provide. It's insane.
Yeah.
Literally Google benefits of stretching, and literally some of that stuff that's on that list, you're going to be like, wait, what? It increases blood flow to my brain, which actually helps regulate my endorphins and mood regulation, and it lowers cortisol levels, so I'm not as anxious and stressed throughout the day. Stretching does that? Yeah, it does.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's cool. It's cool that we know all that
that's
stuff.
one
And
example.
right. And things like stretching, even things like breathing a certain way, just like the stuff that we're figuring out
System.
that probably we've used as humans, for thousands of years, but now, in our current society, we kind of like push them to the side for, for more sedentary lifestyle. We're kind of picking those things back up a little bit.
COVID has actually helped, I think, because you've got people that have been on quarantine at home, have been more confined to their homes for an extended period of time, to where they're coming out and they're noticing that it's different than it was before. But it also gives them time to delve into these categories and educate themselves on a lot of these things. But I think COVID actually helped in an odd way, of because now the weather's getting nice again. We're starting to get back to some sense of normalcy, to where people are wanting to get back out. They're wanting to get active again in the gyms, in the environment, outdoors, period. Right.
Right.
But if their body has been contained for however so long, then it's limiting some of these guys, right? A lot more than we probably think. But stretching is going to help with getting you back to normal, and also helping you live a better life overall. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's what this is all about, really. At the end of the day, whether we're bodybuilders, power lifters, we like to do Ironmans, whatever it is. I think it's just it's a way to stay active. In that competition helps us do that. But at the end of the day, I think it's about the longevity of how can we stay healthy
Oh yeah.
longer. Kind of to wrap things up, going back to bodybuilding, for those people out there, maybe who are, in high school or, in college, as I was, really getting into the world of fitness, maybe they're looking at bodybuilding. What kind of advice would you have for that person who wants to try it out and maybe even, take it very
Yeah.
seriously?
Yeah. That is a good question. I come across these people both in the gym every day, and both on social media with people that I see and people that reach out. But for anybody out there, you could be a male, you could be female, doesn't matter. We welcome anybody who is wanting to take interest to the sport. But I just encourage everyone to do their research, and to just acquire the knowledge, because all the knowledge is out there for anything really. We have so much knowledge at the disposal of our fingertips that if you're really thinking or considering about getting into it, to just do your research on your own, but also start trying to surround yourself by other people who share some of the common interests, common goals, that are like-minded. And then it'll become even more fun, because then you'll be in an environment of people who want to see you succeed, and then it'll be a collective type of synergy type thing that's going on. And I think it'll make the experience for a lot of these young fitness journeys that are starting to blossom, and they're starting to take off and really immerse themselves in the gym environment and stuff like that, to where if you go in knowledgeable to a certain extent, and you start surrounding yourself with friends and colleagues and acquaintances that also want to succeed in that environment, then you can do nothing but walk out of that winning. Right. And then learning from your mistakes, learning from the mistakes of just failing at a specific lift or whatever the case may be. That would probably be my advice to anybody that's getting started. I didn't necessarily have anybody to really be that person, so I just kind of took the initiative on myself to kind of coach myself before I even made the decision to compete, right, I was really just wanting to learn as much as possible from the greats. So I'm talking all the way, looking at the history of the sport, how it's evolved and changed over the years. Um, the rules and regulations of the different divisions. I immersed myself in all of that and fell in love with just learning the history. I could rattle off some of the greatest bodybuilders, and I know, what year they competed in the Olympia, and no, I could name you stats on a lot of these guys. You probably never even heard of them, but that's just because I really fell in love with what the sport had to offer. But for somebody that's just starting off, if you really have a passion for it, and a lot of these guys, I see them in the gym and they're flexing and they're doing the bodybuilding poses and they're wanting to look, I think that's a natural, everybody, male and female, maybe males a little bit more because we're testing testosterone and all that at that age, developmental age. I think every guy goes to that stage where you do want to be, the alpha version of yourself. I'll put it that way. But that's an ongoing process. Well, you started when you were in your later 20s, whatever. I started when I was in my teens. Doesn't matter. You can start whenever. It's just about, if it's a passion, if it's something that you like to do, then why wouldn't you want to learn even more? Why wouldn't you even want to, go a little bit harder on the diet? Consistency is going to be the number one hurdle for a lot of the newbies, because it's still an issue for me. Remaining disciplined with my diet, training, all of it, getting enough sleep, getting comfortable with delayed gratification. Okay. Getting comfortable with not seeing results overnight, not getting a 6-pack overnight, not being shredded overnight, not gaining 20 pounds overnight, right? You've got to put in time, man. I put in 10 years. Let's look at it. Okay. So there you go. People are like, what do you, because I've been doing it for 10 years. There's the answer. Put in the necessary time and the results will come. Hard work never fails. Okay. You will always see results when you apply a little bit of consistency, work ethic, and discipline. And I tell my clients that. I try to instill that to anybody that comes at me with that question. And that is the message that I try to promote, because I want to make this sport the number one sport. I would love to see bodybuilding back on ESPN like the old days. I would love to see us televise and our events televised and the Arnold be on CBS Sports like it was in the olden days. I want to see a resurgence of that. I think we're headed in that direction. But I think, it needs to be a lot of encouragement for those younger generations. But we're seeing it. We're definitely seeing it. So just educate yourself to the young guys. Look at what the people have done for years. It's not broke. So we're not trying to fix anything. The science is there. Everything's there, since the beginning of the sport. So just do your research and get comfortable with delayed gratification and being consistent and sticking to something for an extended period of time, putting in the necessary time to see results. That's going to be the biggest hurdle. And as far as being able to educate yourself, that's just how bad are you interested in this. If you're not interested enough to do your own research, then you probably need to find an interest somewhere else, right? So that's not being mean. That's just goes with anything. If I'm not interested in football, why am I going to look into the history or, what football is, right? Mm-hmm. If I like the gym, if I like training, if I'm looking at these little influencers and on YouTube and stuff, and I may be wanting to push myself and compete in a show, then just do the research. Get a coach if you want to, but get an educated coach. Don't just go out here and pay some willy-nilly guy that's giving you some bogus program that he gives everybody else. Actually get somebody who looks like they are in shape, who actually has done some stuff. Look at their resume. What are some of their accolades? Look at their transformation clients, right? That's what I say to younger people, because they can be a little bit misled, a little bit blinded. Don't worry about all of the baggage that comes with all of that fluff that we were talking about earlier when it comes to natty, unnatty. Nobody cares about that. That's irrelevant. If you're just now getting your feet wet into it, learn the fundamentals like I did. Learn the fundamental core lifts. Learn the fundamental diet that has been working for years, right? And then just apply that to your body, because everybody has different genetics, genes, genetic makeups, metabolisms. Everybody has different genetics. That's not in our control. That's God and your parents. But given your genetic, whatever level you are, it doesn't matter if you're fat, skinny, mesomorph, ectomorph, endo, all of that stuff, anybody can do it. But just start educating yourself, because a lot of these, here's what happens when you don't educate yourself. And I'll end off on that. If you're not educating yourself, you're either you're getting injured, and then you're just out, and then lose it, or you're making ill-willed decisions that are not benefiting you at all. So in order to mitigate making ill-willed decisions or getting injured, educate yourself first. Okay. Learn the fundamentals, learn all of the basics, and then just you just know that it's going to take some time to get where you want to go. It doesn't have to be done. People just want instantaneous results. That's how society has conditioned us in this day, is to be, phone, we're on our phone 24/7. But it's like, if we can just get comfortable with the delayed gratification again, the feeling that you get. I prep for 24 weeks for one day, right? I prep for 364 days a year for one competition that happens on one day. And you ask me, hey, Daniel, I had somebody ask me the other day, it's like, dude, if you could, all those days, that cardio, all that suffering that you went through to look like that on stage, because people just see, you look at my page, you see the body, but you don't necessarily see the fasted cardio and the macro counting and all of that goes into actually prepping for a show. You see the finished product, and some people don't realize how much work goes into it. But it's like, if I could press an easy button and erase all of the progress to get up to that point versus put in the work and enjoy the process, I would never erase. I get so much gratification out of the actual process that is what I live for. That's why I wake up in the morning. Literally, at this point in my life, I wake up to benefit people with the stretching, right? But as far as bodybuilding, there's no other feeling like it for me. And it will always, as long as God willing, it will always be an integral part of my lifestyle. It's not just a hobby at this point. It was at the beginning. That there comes a point to where some people go more of a in-depth versus just being a hobby. I had to cross that point. Now I'm a pro. Now it is a lifestyle. I'm trying to make moves to where hopefully by the end of this year, shout out to Black Magic Supplements. I'm sponsored by them now, but hopefully I'm on that Olympia stage in 2023. And but here's the deal, Daniel. It all started with me not being able to bench press a 45-pound bar freshman year of high school. That's where it all started. And now we're sitting here 10 years later, still happy as all get out, right? And I wouldn't have changed. I mean, the process, man. People say, well, would have just skipped those years of enduring? Why? Because that's what made it fun. So if people can start falling in love with the delayed gratification again, I think they're going to be so much more happy. You're not going to see these people, body dysmorphia, depression, wallowing in their own self-pity. They're actually going to start challenging themselves again, going to the gym and experiencing what it feels like to get a taste of failure. And then they're going to go back again the next day and try it again. These are life lessons. These are life lessons that we learn in the gym, right? It teaches you how to grow up, be an adult, take on responsibility. There's so many other benefits that it does. But do your research first, or else you'll F it up. That's the end all be all. Do your research and you'll be good.
I think that's good advice. Very, very true, and it's so true. The consistency aspect is,
I'm telling you, that feeling, those guys that are listening to this, they're like, what? That feeling that you get, it could be anything. But for, if we're talking about bodybuilding, the day that when they announced, it's like the show day, right? And there's so much emotions going through. You're on that stage. You're remembering when you felt like shit, right? You're remembering when you was on zero carbs and doing 45 minutes of fasted cardio and then, and sweating your ass off. You're on that stage. You're remembering all that. And then they're calling, okay, 4th place, 3rd place, 2nd place. And you're in front. There's no, at that point, it's emotional for me to even start thinking about it at this point, because you realize, wow, I committed to something. I busted my ass to try to achieve this goal, and it happened. Even if I would have lost, even if I would have came in not first, right? I would have still been able to look back and say, holy shit. I'm going to cuss on I hope that bleep it out if you need to.
That's okay.
I said, holy shit. I said, I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life. Right. And it teaches you so much more, because I go into work every day with that same work ethic, and I apply it in my daily job, right? In my family and all of that. Bodybuilding helps me with it. Bodybuilding saved my life. Okay. But we won't go there. That'll be on the next podcast. I'm going to mic drop, because Killa Cam didn't always have his stuff together, but bodybuilding, my guy, saved my life. God put bodybuilding in my life at the right moment that he needed to do it, to save me from going over.
Well, that's like you said, I think that's a really good place to end it. And I'll have to have you back on
let's end it there.
that story.
Yeah, I'll tell that story. That's the little segue to the next one when we do it again.
Definitely.
And
man.
I'll tell the people what exactly, those years, the dark years. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. It'd be cool to have you back on, and I appreciate your time tonight and sharing your journey and your experience thus far.
Thanks for having me, man. Keep doing what you're doing. I love this podcast. All right. Thanks, Daniel.